I love their ideas, and I love their author's voice. All three of them have really distinctive voices, and as you know, just as a reader, it's a feast. And as a narrator, it's like the biggest challenge is to divine the author's voice, to just absorb the text and the subtext and internalize it to the point where you feel like you can speak for the author.
This is Gratitude Geek. I'm Candice Rodardi, productivity coach for female solopreneurs over 40. And today we are talking to award-winning narrator Paul Heitsch. I'm a huge fan of this dude, so I'm excited, and I hope that you enjoy this as much as I do. So welcome, Paul.
Hi, thanks for having me on.
Oh,
this is a treat.
So for those in the audience who don't listen to every single book ever written by Joshua Dalzelle, tell us your story. Who are you, and how did you become a voice narrator?
That's a really long story because I started narrating late in life. So there was like a whole journey that went on where I was a piano player and then a staff composer and sound designer for game companies. And then for talking books for kids, I wrote music and sound effects and directed and recorded the voiceover sessions for those. And then from there, I wound up managing the audio department at Rosetta Stone, the language learning company. They were ramping up to come out with this whole new version, and they had to produce a bunch of products at once, so they had to increase their staff, and I got hired to run the sound department. I did more work in the game industry, and then kind of found myself at a crossroads in my career. I had sort of aged out of all the things that I had expertise in, so I had to figure out what I was going to do next. And I'd always been a big fan of audiobooks. I had listened to audiobooks for, I don't know, since the 80s when they were all on cassettes. And I had experience recording and producing spoken word content. So there was a job opening for an audiobook production coordinator at this place called ACX that I'd never heard of. And ACX is Audiobook Creation Exchange. It's a division of Audible, which is owned by Amazon. But they were experiencing kind of the same thing where the industry was just exploding. And so they had set up it's sort of a Match.com for indie authors and narrators. They call it ACX. So they needed a guy to be their audiobook production coordinator. So I thought, well, I'm custom made for this job. I mean, my whole resume is like the job description. So I filled out the application, and then while I was there, I thought, they're for sure going to call me for an interview. I should get smart about this company. So I just went all over the ACX website. Then I thought, I'll fill out a profile, because I had done some voiceover work when I was working for game companies, and I had also done some acting in high school. So I thought, why not? And I knew the technology. So I recorded a couple of samples for a couple of just random royalty share books, sent those off, and then waited for the phone to ring. The phone never rang for the interview, but I did get cast for one of the two books that I auditioned for. So I thought, well, okay, I'll give that a try. And it took me 3 months to finish my first book, which was a 10-hour book, mostly because I was just being way too fussy with it on the editing side. And also I was working 2 part-time jobs, and I had gone back to school to get a degree. So there were some scheduling conflicts as well. But I learned the 2 big takeaways for me from that first book was just how hard the work was, and how much time and focus it required, and that I absolutely loved it. And then the guy who cast me for that first book cast me for 3 more right away. He said, I got 3 more for you. You want them? I said, sure. So that's how I got started.
Oh my gosh. So you came to it late in life, which means it's not too late. If somebody's thinking about doing voice narration or narrating books now, it is. I keep wanting to say voice actor because I think what you do is acting, but
it is. Yeah, that's fair.
I have a crackle in my sound setup, and I have to figure out what it is. It's going to drive me nuts. I know it's not getting picked up by the.
Yeah, I can't hear
Yeah,
it.
so
I can hear your chair, but I can't hear anything else. But I know how annoying and distracting that is.
12 seconds later.
it was a
That could
twist. I just needed
that
to
could
twist.
happen.
I think it's
There
time
you
for me
go.
to buy new headphones.
Yeah.
Okay. You know how funny. It's interesting that you picked up the chair because I have never picked up my chair. So I don't know if my microphone. I don't know. I don't.
No, it's I am acutely trained to hear those things because I'm in this little booth with this really sensitive microphone, and any extraneous noise that occurs while I'm recording, I have to be aware of. There are editors who will hear that and take it out, but it's it's like you don't let people see you bathe. You and I don't like letting anything out of the booth that sort of exposes too much about what's going on in the booth. I want it to be as clean and as close to finished as possible.
And I think that is the difference between what you do as a narrator of books and what I do as a podcaster. Because as a podcaster, I want people to see and hear and know what's going on there in the world. Podcasting isn't the same as a radio show. I don't think. I think there's a little bit of a realness, a rawness.
It's less scripted.
Yeah, exactly. And I do have a list of questions, but for the most part, I don't want that. I want to just have a real raw conversation and learn. For today, I'm going to learn about what it takes to be a narrator because I had this fantasy when I was 18 years old that I was going to become an actor and then, do things like voice acting, and that's not the road that I traveled. And so when I was, in my early 40s, I said, oh, well, if I can't be a voice actor, I can be a podcaster. So 11 years ago, I started a podcast. But now that I'm hearing from you that it's not too late, maybe I'll do a little, so talk to me about the process of what it takes today, because you did that a while ago. So what would it take today if somebody wanted to break into narration? What would they need to do?
Well, I would say the first place you want to go is ACX. They have thousands and thousands and thousands of books that are posted for auditions. But I would also, with that caveat, I would say, be mindful of the fact that you are starting a business, or that if this is something that you are thinking seriously about doing, it's a business. It's a one-person operation where you're the owner and manager, but you're also the asset that's being sold.
That's the very definition of solopreneur.
Yeah. And there are industry standards for quality. You do need an appropriate space to record in. You do need the equipment is less of a factor because there are so many really, really good microphones and interfaces and all the equipment you need to actually record the sound. That's inexpensive. I mean, just very inexpensive. Relatively speaking, it's a few $100. Mm-hmm. But yeah, you do need to you need to educate yourself about what the technical standards are of the audio. You have to be honest with yourself about whether or not you can act, because you're right, it's an acting job. So it's not enough that people tell you have a nice voice. It's can you tell a story that encompasses all of these different people in all of these different settings, and do it justice. I mean, really, really convey to the listener what the author was trying to get across with this story, and connect them to the story. It's a really challenging acting job. So yeah, just be honest with yourself about whether you think you can be a successful actor. But if the work speaks to you, if you're cut out for it, it's the greatest job in the world. I've been doing this for 14 years and I'm still having a blast.
And with narration and voice acting, you don't have anything other than your voice to get across what you're trying to convey. And if your tone of voice is wrong for the phrase, it could change what something means.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
So how do you know what tone to take?
I just do. I'm sorry, I can't answer it any more simply than that. I mean, I can talk about, the things you would think were obvious. Is you read the book, you internalize the story, and at that point, it's like you know who these people are, you know what's going on, and so you just perform that. There are a lot of schools of acting, where there's this whole process that people go through to get into the character. I don't have a process. I read the book, I recognize who the people are, and I act that.
Do you interact with the authors?
Rarely.
Really?
Yeah, yeah. If I'm doing a book for Joshua, we met on ACX. I auditioned for Omega Force. Yeah, if you're meeting on ACX, then yes, your point of contact is the author, and so we will correspond. But most of the authors I work with at this point are already familiar with the ACX process, and so our communications are very just like, hey Joshua, I've uploaded the first 15 milestone. Hey Joshua, I've uploaded all the files. Or if during prep I'll say, hey Joshua, how do you want this name pronounced? Or there's a continuity thing I noticed here, or whatever. That is super rare, where the narrator is like collaborating with the author at that level. But I've done, I don't know, 20 some books for Joshua by this point, and I'm probably as familiar with him and his author's voice as his editor or anybody.
Well, when I interviewed him for episode 250, y'all, when I interviewed him, he talked about how you're actually a partner. Like he'll send you advanced copies of his stories, which made me think that it was a collaboration.
It is,
which
yeah.
But from what you're saying, that is a very rare.
It is. Mostly it's work for hire, and when I work for the majority of my work comes from publishers. And at that point, yeah, you're a contractor. It's a work for hire.
So who is there a director, or
there often is. I have never worked with a director. I live in rural Virginia, so it would mean it would mean me going to New York or Michigan or someplace where it's quite a schlep and physically being in the room with the director. Now, there are remote directors, too, and a lot of narrators will hire a director on just out of their own pocket to work with them remotely.
Interesting.
Yeah, like I say, I've never had the experience, so it's hard for me at this point to imagine having somebody else involved in real time while I'm working. But what I hear is that it really it's very liberating because you can. It's like one whole set of decisions that you don't have to be mindful of while you're working.
That makes sense. Because because you're doing it all alone, you are making all the decisions. So you also doing the audio engineering?
No, I do a little bit on my end to sweeten the sound up. There are loudness standards, and they have to do with the loudness of me talking and the quietness of the room when I'm not talking, and more publishers are communicating that they want these specs met with the audio. So I'm doing some light, subtle things on my end to sort of get me in that sweet spot. But other than that, no, somebody else edits it, somebody else engineers it, somebody else proofs it to make sure, and any mistakes I've made are caught, and we re-record those.
A lot of times you can tell when that happens because there's something about the narration changes in the book, just a slight bit, and you go, oh, they must have made a boo-boo there.
Yeah.
But
exactly.
it adds personality to the story. Okay, so one of the reasons why you are such an amazing narrator is that you actually create voices and personalities through your voice for the characters, and especially in the character-driven. I mean, Joshua Dalzelle's books are very character-driven, so the voices need to be very distinct. And you have this magical way of figuring that out. Please don't say, I don't know, I just can.
Okay.
How do you determine who gets what voice, and then how do you remember over the course of 10 books in a series what their voice is supposed to sound like?
The way I decide who they are is who do they remind me of.
Oh,
so
that's a good tip.
Crusher was like Worf from Star Trek, the Next Generation, but with like just a really smart ass attitude. You have no honor. So you drop your voice back in your throat and get really chesty with the tone. But yeah, I mean he's so sarcastic and abusive. So but that was the starting point for me for Worf's voice. Cage I thought of as this little green. Who's the guy from Moneyball? Not Brad Pitt, but the other guy. Is it Seth? Or, no,
it's Gad. Gad is his last name.
Oh, Josh Gad.
Yeah.
It's not him, but it's a
the
character
guy who looks like
him.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's a character like him. So he's I always register him as small, as like this little green sort of, midget walking around. So his voice is up here. Yeah, with 6 hands and so yeah, his voice is up here, and he's also kind of a smart ass, but so you find different registers. And again, who do they remind me of? That's my anchor point. It's just like connecting that to a voice that I've already kind of memorized orally. That's where I think being a musician was really helpful, because it taught me how to learn things by ear, or it encouraged me to learn how to memorize things by ear. And then, as far as remembering them, some of them are so vividly present, that even a year later I can say, "Oh yeah, I remember this guy, no problem." But for a lot of the characters, I have a track in my session with snippets of all the characters' voices. Mm. As soon as a new character is in, and this is a habit that I have learned the hard way to get into doing. But as soon as a new character is introduced, I will come up with a voice for them, and then as I record a line or two of their dialogue, I'll cut that out and paste it into the characters track. And so then whenever I need to remind myself, and that track travels from book to book, I'll import that track into the next book's session, so that as I am reading the book and this character comes up, I'll just, oh yeah, I've got that sample, and just listen to it back, and then I remember how I voiced him.
That's a great tip. It's a very good tip. So I did a little snooping, and I discovered that you had quite a few video games that you narrated back in the day, including the sequel to like the beginning, the first video game, Myst, right? So you narrated the sequel to Myst. What was that?
No. I didn't narrate that. I worked at a music production house in Chicago, and we did the music and the sound design, and recorded all of the dialogue and the Foley, the ADR and the Foley for the cutscenes.
And Foley is sound effects. No?
Foley is sound effects that you see happening on screen.
Mm. Okay.
So it's not like background noise. It's not effects like explosions. It's things where people are touching things. People are coming into contact with things. Their footsteps, or opening a book, or writing in a book. That's Foley.
Okay. And so what is different about video games than books? And I know you didn't do voice acting on them, but
there's so much that's different.
A video game can be Myst was a book that was extremely interactive.
Right. Yeah. Right. Those games are. I mean, that's a genre of games. So yeah, you're telling a story, but you're also inviting the player to interact with the story. You know, to like. You're not like in Myst. There are all these puzzles. So you put the player in a room, and they have to solve the puzzle. You're not going to like tell them, okay, you're in this room, and these are the things that have happened in this room, and here's what's happening now. And it's just, bam, you're there. And I honestly, Candace, I've never even thought about this because they were such radically different experiences for me. Being on one side of the production chain, and being responsible for multiple deadlines and multiple resource management issues, and it's just very, very different. It's very corporate too. But yeah, there's a bro culture too that permeates the industry that you don't find at all in audiobooks. Yeah.
Well, and so it's corporate versus very, very independent. I mean, you're working with indie authors, and you're an independent solopreneur. So that is a completely different beast. You can't. I mean, it's like comparing apples and oranges and bananas, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's have that conversation that everybody wants to hear. Is AI coming for voice narration?
It's not coming for any human held jobs for now. I mean, people have wild predictions about how good it's going to be 3 or 5 years down the road. I don't see how you can ever train a machine learning algorithm with a large language model how to tell a story the way a person tells a story who has the emotional intelligence and the experience, the life experience to give context and nuance to a story. And I mean, the books that AI will not ruin are not books that you would be hiring a human for anyway. Like that, it's used for college textbooks a lot now. And Kindle has this program where you can get your book produced in audio for either some nominal fee or for free using their virtual voice technology. And there's tens of thousands of books out there that have been produced using virtual voice. But I know that in 2024, when AI was really surging into the audiobook market in that way, that was when the virtual voice started, and the number of books just went through the roof right away. The rate of growth of books produced year after year has been very stable. It's like 10 or 11% a year increase every year since they started tracking of books produced, titles produced. And you know which ones are AI narrated, you know which ones are human narrated. The human narrated books have continued to grow at the same rate. So it's not like this sudden spate of AI narrated books on the market has impacted the market for human narrated books in any perceptible way. How long we can expect that to go on, again, I don't know. But for now, it seems like AI is just completely unsuitable for the kinds of books that people are hired to narrate.
There's this app that I have, and Blinkist. It's called Blinkist. Have you heard of Blinkist?
Okay.
So what they do is they take nonfiction. Mostly, I mostly listen to books about marketing or sales because I teach solopreneurs how to sell. So what they do is they synopsize a nonfiction book in 10 minutes, and for the most part, the narration is done by AI. And that's okay. I mean, it's really dry. I'll listen to it when I'm brushing my teeth or whatever. It's very dry. But if I want to be told a story, I want to be sucked into that story to the point where I can't turn it off. Right. Which is what it's like when I'm listening to a book that you've narrated, right? I know. I'm just gonna wax your ego, but it's really hard to turn off the book when I'm listening to something that you've narrated, Or another series that was narrated exceptionally well was the Outlander books, which they I don't know what her name is, but she
Davina, is it Davina Porter?
I think so, something like that.
Yeah.
But I mean, just I don't want to turn off the book because the narration is so good.
She's terrific.
And I remember listening to The Golden Compass like 2 decades ago. And I was working in my office. I was home alone, working in my office, and I was listening to it on a CD. And at some point, I realized I was sitting on the floor next to my CD player, listening to the book. That is, AI can't do that.
No, it can't.
AI can't. I mean, I don't even know how I got to the floor, sitting on the floor, listening to the book, but I must have been there for hours because CDs could only be like 90 minutes or something because you had to change CDs.
Yeah.
But so I mean, I've been a huge fan of listening to books because I'm one of those people that has to do more than one thing at the same time. I can't just focus on one thing. So reading a book is hard for me, but I can listen and do a myriad of other things. But so I don't think AI is going to replace it, but I don't mind my 10-minute synopsis of a book.
No, AI, the people who are going to listen to AI are the people who just want to consume the content. They're people who listen to audiobooks at 1.5 or 2x speed because they just want to cram as much content through their mental pipeline as fast as possible. For that audience. And it's a significant portion of the audience because they're the ones that are constantly buying the content to cram. For that audience, AI might encroach some, but there are enough people who are exactly like you. They want to get lost in the story. They want to be pulled into it. AI is never, ever going to be an issue.
I love that. I love that you said that. So there are people who do believe that AI is coming for their jobs, artists, graphic artists. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts about that?
I almost prefer not to think about it because my thoughts are, why is this the thing that we want to monetize AI for? Why are we looking to AI to do our art for us? Why are we looking to AI to write our emails for us? If your emails are fairly routine or if it's taken up a bunch of your time. So I understand the business model and I understand that there is this huge financial pie that all of these AI companies are trying to get a slice of, and the pie is just getting bigger and bigger all the time.
And that's the thing, the pie is getting bigger and bigger all the time.
Yeah, but I mean, sure, create your AI agents that help people work more efficiently, but why is art, why is creativity the thing that you think is really the best use of this product you're developing? It's disappointing, that we don't recognize the value more of our own humanity, that we don't cherish our own humanity enough to just think that this is absurd. We shouldn't even be bothering with this.
Yeah. And there's fads for everything, and eventually people are going to realize that what they're getting from AI isn't good enough.
Right.
That it's, you can get idea. I mean, I have used AI to generate some stuff and gone, ugh, but then I've gone into a graphic design software and I have reproduced what AI produced, but I did it better, right?
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's you can get ideas from it, but I just don't think that's where AI is going to go. My husband Shannon and I just launched a new podcast. The first 5 episodes of the podcast, we're going to be talking about the Bobaverse, which is a series of books by Dennis E. Taylor.
Yep.
We love these books, and so we are basically the main character is human. It was a human, but now he's AI.
Yeah.
that's exciting. I mean, the possibilities of what can happen are amazing. And you're right. We're focused on triviality of what AI is.
Yeah, I love that series. I've thought of having a bracelet made that just says, "What would Ray Porter do?" and wear that while I'm working. You know, 'cause his choices are always, to me, his choices are always just like, once you hear him perform them, you're like, of course, but he's the only person to whom it would occur to make that choice.
I think you have a similar ability, though.
Oh,
I mean, I haven't just listened to Joshua Dalzelle books. You've narrated all sorts of different kinds of books. You even narrated Dinosaurs, which was, I mean, it won a whole bunch of awards.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
nothing. That's not sci-fi at all.
No, and it's one of my favorite books. I knew as soon as I started reading the book, it's like, oh, this I gotta be super careful with this one. I have to really focus and because every third paragraph had a landing that I had to stick. I mean, just her writing style was like, paragraph, boom. And it would be just a short sentence with some really subtle observation or some description of something, but the way she used the language and the thing that she was getting at with that sentence was like, man, you better nail that one. So that and the whole book it's not a long book. It's like 6 or 7 hours, and it's not even much of a story. It just meanders around. It's a slice of life where this guy just moves to Arizona and meets these people and
it's kind of Steinbeck-ish.
Just starts to build his life back again and figure out who he is after this catastrophe he's suffered. But yeah, man, I think I worked harder and I took more care with that book than almost any book I've ever performed.
Well, and the results were awards. I mean, it's an award-winning narration. So
yeah, I was lucky to get that one. I was just so pleased when I auditioned for that with I think it was Dreamscape, and and the producer said, I was thinking of you when I got this book, so I'm really glad you auditioned. So yeah,
what a great compliment.
Yeah.
So you have a very distinct voice. You're from Chicago and you live in West Virginia now, or Virginia?
Virginia, yeah.
But that's not a Virginia accent, and it's not a Chicago accent.
No. Well, Chicago doesn't have really. I mean, there are neighborhoods in Chicago that have different accents or dialects. Because Chicago is just it's all neighborhoods. It's Polish neighborhoods. It's Puerto Rican neighborhoods. It's Italian neighborhoods. It's Greek neighborhoods. It's Chinese neighborhoods. I mean, so every section of Chicago, you're going to hear people talking differently. I was actually brought up in Oak Park, which is on the west side of Chicago, and I watched a lot of TV. So I just pick up the standard English pronunciation that you hear people like the news people or the sports announcers or whoever on TV talking like.
But you do it's not necessarily an accent. It's the tenor of your voice is very unique, which is it's very nice to listen to.
Thank you.
I'm from California originally, and the other night I don't even know what I said, but my daughter says to me, "Mom, that was so California." I was like, well, I am from California. I haven't lived there in 40 years, but I am from California. There are little inflections and things that I might say or do or tonalities that I'm going to. I mean, I talked like a Valley girl when I was little, younger, like for sure, So occasionally that might come back, but I also lived in Texas.
I can't picture that at all.
But I also lived in Texas, so I might.
Yeah.
I might. So you have this mixture of depending on where you've lived, you get these little,
sure,
and phrases like "all y'all." I'm sorry, that is an all-encompassing, gender-neutral term that can be used to say everything. So I'm never going to drop "all y'all," even no matter how long I live in the North. I'm just going to continue saying it because it makes sense.
Yeah.
So, which is, I don't know if you can get that kind of mixture of dialect anywhere else in the world other than the United States.
Yeah.
So let's talk about dialects. Is it hard? I mean, because I don't know. I mean, for the most part, you're making up voices, but you are getting some ideas from dialect. So which are the easiest to reproduce and which are...
For some reason, English accents are hard for me because I've heard so many different ones, but I don't know where they're from. And they all have similarities, along with the differences that make them distinctive. So yeah, whenever I try to affect an English accent, I find that no, Paul, you just kind of went from RP to Cockney there. That's not good. Other languages, I'm kind of blissfully ignorant of any different varieties in their accents. So I have teaching CDs from accenthelp.com, which is a great service. For like $30 you can get a 6 CD course on how to perform all these different dialects. And I just listen to the oral examples. Again, it's just memorizing things by ear and reading through the materials where they tell you which aspects of the accent to concentrate on and remember are the things that really distinguish them. So like a French accent is not too hard. A German accent is also not too hard. Australian, I love me an Australian accent. And then my favorite is Russian, just because it just rolls around in the back of your throat, and always the Russian characters are interesting but also evil characters.
Yeah, that's really unfortunate because there are some really nice Russian people out there.
Yeah.
So my mother it was Korean, and she had a very thick Korean accent, and I cannot reproduce it. And I don't know if I can't reproduce it because out of respect to my mother or but you would think that it's something that I heard my entire life that I would be able to do, but I can't.
Yeah.
But the Korean accent is also one it has a very fun back of the throat kind of, I don't know if you've ever tried to reproduce it. Can I just tell you, though, that Ray Porter gets the Brazilian accent really wrong in Bobiverse. So you may think that he is the thing, but his Brazilian accent sounds Russian to me.
Okay, yeah, that's a creative choice.
Oh, I like the way I like where you went there.
But yeah, there are narrators who don't attempt dialects at all. The guy that I always think of is Richard. Paul, come on. He narrated the Mars books by Kim Stanley Robinson. Richard Ferrone.
Okay.
Terrific. Just gripping, compelling narration. You never ever wonder who is talking at any given point because he just so fully embodies all these characters. But he does it within just his own range of dialect and the tonal range of his voice, just through sheer acting. And he doesn't. There are Arabic characters, there are French characters, there are African, from different parts of Africa characters. He's just always, Richard through those things. But again, he's just such an agile and gifted actor that he could embody all these people and do it convincingly. So you never thought, shouldn't they have an accent? It's just, no, this is how they talk. And then there were, Catherine Kellgren was famous for being able to authentically reproduce literally any dialect. That was, she got cast for a lot of books that required dialects just because she was like a Meryl Streep of narrators in that regard. So again, I mean, I'm kind of sticking with my original statement. It's an artistic choice. It's a creative choice.
And it doesn't. I mean, the fact that Ray Porter gets the Brazilian accent so wrong doesn't deter from the excellent narration.
Yeah. And as long as he's getting it consistently wrong, too, you'll still know who's talking. So.
That is not a Portuguese inflection. That is definitely a Russian inflection.
Yeah.
But it's still
Right.
it's still so good.
Yeah.
And when a book has a great narrator, but there aren't any more books in the series, a lot of times a listener like myself and my husband will choose a new book based on the narrator, not necessarily based on the author.
Yeah.
Because we're there for the entertainment.
That tracks.
And a great narrator can make any story interesting. Let's go off the beaten path here. If you were to narrate a speculative fiction book about the future of publishing books, what do you think the plot twist would be?
The plot twist would probably be some kind of somebody who's just like a nobody, working as a delivery person or a barista or something, and they just write this story in their spare time, where they're just like pouring out whatever is in their head, and it catches on the internet. They upload it to Substack or Wattpad or whatever, and it just takes off, and all of a sudden this is the new paradigm for publishing everything. All the publishers try to get in on it, and they completely miss the boat that the thing that made it special was that it came from a completely organic origin, and the story itself is 100% authentic to what the author's raw ideas and feelings about things. But that's not even speculative. So I don't know. The industry has always been a black box to me. Really, I close myself up in my little mercury capsule of a booth, and I do the thing that I love doing, and I send it off, and then I move on to the next book and keep doing the thing that I love doing. And I should probably be more savvy and pay more attention to industry trends.
I don't know if that's necessarily true. I actually stopped. I unsubscribed from several industry trend newsletters in sales and marketing because I just felt like I was getting sucked into this rabbit hole of, and so, I went back to just teaching my clients the basics. You need to know who your ideal client is. You need to know where they're hurting, and then you need to know how to reach them and what to say to them. Mm-hmm. And if you can do those things, you can sell to anybody. Because you're not selling to anybody, you're selling to a specific person.
Yeah.
I get an email almost every single day from somebody telling me that they can take my YouTube channel and make it viral. And I'm like, well, obviously you haven't ever listened to any of my shows because I don't want to go viral. I just want to reach the right person. I want to reach that woman over 40 who's a solopreneur who's trying to make her business better. She doesn't really want to grow. She just wants to have more time, reach the right client, sell it for the right price, and, maybe do something new, like become a voice actor, if that's something interesting, or just learn about something new. That's who my audience is. I don't need to have 10,000 downloads. I'm happy with 300, right? So people, understanding who your ideal audience is. We just totally went down a rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Hey, so if that sounds interesting to you, listener, and you are not currently part of Robusta, my group coaching program for female solopreneurs over 40, there's a link in the show notes. While we're still on AI, do you think it's possible for AI and a human to work together on a narration project?
Well, it's already happening. There are there's one company, and I'll just get this out of the way, and then I won't speak of it again. AI is a misnomer. It's not intelligent. It's just an algorithm. It's a machine learning algorithm, and so there's still nothing really intelligent about it. It can't really make decisions or do anything other than follow its programming and do exactly what the code tells it it's supposed to do. That being said, there's a company called Positron that offers an AI product that you can upload your audio and the text, and it will proof your audio. It will tell you, okay, you said the wrong thing here. You added the word the. It just logs all of your mistakes and spits out all the materials that you need to go back and re-record stuff. They also are developing a research tool, pronunciation research tool, and they are used by most, if not all, of the publishing houses and a lot of smaller indie proofers and editors. It's not a perfect product. It has false positives and it has false negatives. There are mistakes that it doesn't catch. So everything still has to be listened by a human who will hopefully spot the things that the software didn't. But yeah, AI is already a collaborative tool for audio, all on the production side. As far as, there's an AI that's built into my text reader, PDF Professional. And I can actually ask the AI questions about the story. Like I'll be reading through, and somebody it looks like some character might get killed off. And so I'll just ask the AI, does so and so die? And you wait a couple of seconds. You go, no, so and so lives, to do this, or yes, so and so is killed on page 93 in chapter 20. So yeah, I'm using AI to help me prep a book and to like just ask it questions about the story and it'll. I can ask it, is this character ever physically described? And it can understand that question and go through the whole text and say, yes, on page 26, he's described as, very elegantly dressed with penetrating black eyes, that kind of thing.
That's actually really cool. Mm-hmm. And it probably makes it a lot. So I'm assuming you're not reading the books ahead of time then. You're just narrating them.
Oh, no. I read
You read them?
Yeah, okay. I'm skimming more now than I used to, and I think that's just experience. I mean, you start to recognize, patterns in the story, or just plot devices that you've encountered before. So I'll just like skip ahead and say, okay, yeah, this turns out this way. A lot of times I'll read the first few chapters and then I'll read the last few chapters, so that I sort of know what the setup of the story is and I know how it ends. And so whatever plot twists happen in the middle, they won't be surprises. And then the rest is like I say, yeah, finding if there are physical descriptions. You do searches for keywords like accent or voice. He said it in a gravelly voice. So, this guy's got to have a gravelly voice. And that sort of thing.
That's a great tool, and it's a great collaboration.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I like that you explained that AI is not really intelligent. It does what it's programmed to do. So what are your thoughts then on Lucky from?
Oh, Lucky I think he's my favorite character, and the journey that Joshua put him through. From I think it was like book 11 through book 15, just the path that he puts Lucky on and then keeps him there for like book after book, and then there are the Terran Scout Fleet books where he's also still on that same path, and then he comes out. Spoiler alert, he comes out the other end. But yeah, his and I also love how Joshua just sort of very, very slowly and occasionally peels back another layer. Like he learns how to cook, even though he doesn't eat. Even though he doesn't eat, yeah, he learns how to cook, and it tells you something about one, that he has an artistic soul. He wants to be doing something creative. And 2, he really cares about his organic crewmates, that he wants to do this thing and as kind of like a gift to give them, like here's this wonderful meal that I prepared for you, and then just sort of experience their enjoyment of this thing that he made. The fact that he's like Jason's conscience, that he is not only like the smartest and most badass guy on the crew, he's also the one that just has the most reliable moral compass and always knows the right thing to do, or is able to weigh all the nuances of possible outcomes so that he can pick the least bad one. I mean, he's and his voice has changed too. I got the feeling that Joshua didn't like the way that I originally voiced him, because he reappears later in one of the books with a low baritone voice. So I'm like, okay, he's been transformed into this new version that has a baritone voice, I guess. So he went out of his way to like say, this is where I want Lucky's registered to be.
I love that. Well, and at that point, I mean, maybe when he wrote the first Omega Force book, he didn't realize that he'd be writing 12 more.
Yeah.
Right? Or it's wrapping up at 14 or 15 books in the. I'm not sure how many.
The 16th is on schedule to be recorded.
And isn't that going to be the last one?
Not that I know of.
Oh, I thought that he was wrapping up the Omega Force. Oh, he's wrapping up Terran Scout Fleet.
Terran Scout Fleet. Yeah,
Okay.
he's folding that into.
But I mean, he probably had no idea when he wrote the very first book that how these characters would take on their own life.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
for if you're listening and you have no idea who Lucky is a android, I don't have a better term for it, that has been specifically programmed to be a weapon. He's a
battle synth.
He's a battle synth, yeah. That's the word that wouldn't come out of my mouth. So he is fully loaded. I mean, all of his weapons are part of his body, and he likes to cook, which is a wonderful direction to take an android. Yeah. So do you think that in the next 100 years or 200 years that we will have androids with that capability?
I think that's everyone's dream, that we can create our own like custom made companion / personal assistant, whatever, and just have them tailored specifically to our wants and our needs. There are just logistical problems. How big does the battery need to be to power like this machine?
Yeah, that seems to be a problem that never gets addressed in stories.
Yeah, in the Omega Force universe, they have these magical like antimatter fusion little generator, like handheld power supplies that just keep going and going, never need recharging, which is clever. I mean, it recognizes that that's an issue, and it just says, okay, we solved it. Here's how we solved it.
But even the Borg needed to regenerate.
Yeah. So yeah, we don't. What kind of power system is it going to have? And are we ever going to be able to just create something that we won't wind up just hating because it falls short of what we want it to be and how we want it to make us feel? I think keeping robots looking like robots is where we're going to land. The people might experiment with humanoid robots, but I think the result of that is people are just going to want to destroy the things immediately because they're so disappointingly they fall so disappointingly short of what we thought we were going to get.
Yeah,
or what we were hoping to get.
Anybody who's ever used a robotic vacuum knows what you're talking about.
Don't have one of those. I'm the robot.
I would love one, but I have a 2-story house, and I know that my robot would be dumb enough to fall down the stairs. So, not happening. Yeah. All right. Oh man, I wish I could talk to you for hours, but it is actually time to wrap up. This has been an absolute thrill for me. So Paul Heitsch, this is your moment of gratitude. For whom or what are you most grateful?
Oh, I'm just grateful for every day I get to get up and do this work, and for my family for sticking with me while I was finding my way. And now I'm a full-time narrator, and I'm on my second or third career doing what I love. So yeah, I'm grateful for a lot.
Thanks for tuning in to Gratitude Geek, the podcast for grateful micropreneurs building genuine, lasting relationships with clients, colleagues, and community. Our theme music is by Rev Brock and Soul Lily. A huge thank you to our guest, Paul Heitsch. You can find his links in the show notes at gratitudegeek.com. This is episode 277. I've been your host, Candice Rodarty. Stay groovy, my friends.
Stay groovy, my friends.